Hi everybody, and today we're going to be looking at the similarities between two of Lin-Manuel Miranda's hits from his films, the first being Encanto and the second being Moana. Now the two songs that the two heroines of the film sing early on in Encanto, Waiting for a Miracle, and from Moana, How Far I'll Go. Both of course done by the same composer, and both offer the same kind of setting in the film scene that they're doing. So if we think about the opening to Encanto, we've had the family song, the family madrigal. We've had the thing where everything's rosy at the beginning, but the heroine, Mirabel, who turns out to be the heroine later on in the film, as well as other people, is given this kind of virtual slap down by the family and says, look, Mirabel, stay out of the way. You're not really doing anything here, but we love you. But we're going to keep you safe if you just keep out of the way. Things are better when you're not around. The same thing happens with Moana. They have this wonderful upbeat family song at the beginning, but the virtual family slapdown happens again from the father, who says, look, stop listening to this voice inside you. Stop looking for something that isn't there. You're quite safe with us here. And this is what's going on. So, thinking about that, we're going to look at the two things from these two songs that Lin-Manuel Miranda brings out, both musically and otherwise, and tries to build the character. And I think he does it very successfully in both of these films by building the character up through their music. There are all kinds of these things going on through Encanto, which I will look at in another video one day, of these leitmotifs that come back again and again, these themes that happen to come back whenever you see the character reappear. But in actual fact, that's a different story for another time. So thinking about what we've got with Encanto, first of all, if we look at the opening to Waiting for a Miracle, we can see, first of all, that we've got the key of A major. That's important because that's going to come back and help us out later on, because that's going to be chord 1. Let's think about that for a moment. Let's look first of all at this whole opening section here that we've got. We can see that it's got the "Don't be upset or mad at all" is the theme that we had in the family madrigal at the beginning. So that is very much that theme, but it's now not got so much going on behind it. In the opening, it's this really bustling Colombian fiesta style atmosphere with words going everywhere, with lots of energy. In this one, it's a lot more shaky. This is Mirabel saying, I'm waiting for something to happen, but I don't know what. This is shrouded in mystery. So straight away, Lin-Manuel Miranda brings in the theme that he's had earlier on, but slows it down. Now on the piano, that's very percussive. But when you hear it in the actual song, you can hear Mirabel is a lot shakier. She doesn't really know what's happening here, and there's very little going on in the background to that as well. Compare that with the opening now of the Moana, How Far I'll Go, and we've still got this kind of thing where you've got this shaky opening with not a lot going on. So looking at this, we'll look at the key of this one again later, so ignore that for the moment. But you can see there that at the opening, you've got these 4 lengthy but very ethereal and mysterious sounding chords. And even in that first bit, yes, it's not so much of a recitative or shakiness that we experience with Mirabel, but there's not a great deal going on here from Moana. She's still really searching. He even says, really at the beginning, I've been staring, but in other words, I've been searching, but I can't find what I'm looking for. So although it's a lot shakier than that Mirabel opening, there's still very little going on in the background. We still get this sense really that the heroine here is uncertain of what she's about to try and go through, but she knows she's going to have some kind of awakening in her, but she doesn't know what yet. So it works in the same way. The main thing though that we want to look at is the chord structure that happens here. So if we look here at the section of Waiting for a Miracle, right at the beginning where that comes in. You remember earlier we mentioned that this had the key of A major, which is what those three sharps mean. So now that we've got the key signature of A major sorted out, we know now that this is chord number 1, the A major. So that sounds like this. Now, it's going to sound awful if I try and play this a miracle on the piano, but it sounds like this. Now, if I try and put that with the A chord. Now, the important thing here is that the word miracle is on a major chord. I deliberately haven't changed to that D minor chord yet. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But so if you're listening to the word miracle, it's a very kind of happy sound. Miracle. But the element of doubt comes in with this D chord. Now chord 4, which is what that is, because there's A, then number 2 would be B, number 3 would be C sharp, and number 4 would be D. That chord 4 there becomes important because that should be, in A major, should be a D major chord, sounding like this. Now that sounds confident, that sounds really forthright and thinking, a miracle, a miracle. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is what's actually being sounded there. So with that minor chord, it becomes now shrouded in mystery of waiting for a miracle, a miracle. So the subdominant, the 4 chord, we call that the subdominant, becomes shrouded in mystery by the fact that it becomes a minor chord. So this then gets used later on in the song lots and lots of times. Whenever you hear that miracle, the second time that Mirabel sings miracle, you will hear that it's that D minor chord becoming much more prominent throughout the song. But it's still mostly a minor chord until you get to the end, when that minor chord is done away with, where Mirabel thinks, I know what I'm doing now. I've got to go forward and do something. The minor chord is gone. She disbands with that. Lin-Manuel Miranda decides, I don't want that minor chord in there now. Mirabel has found that inner strength that she's looking for. So we don't need to shroud it in mystery anymore. There is always that element of self-doubt with that chord 4 minor coming in. Let's look at the same thing happening in Moana. So if we look at the where that happens in Moana, we can see that we've got the same idea here. So we've got the key of E major, 4 sharps. Why is that important? Because now we know that that is chord number 1 of E major. This is that bit. So important again to notice, you can see here we've got this chord 4, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. That's number 4 there. E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And again, it's that minor chord. So the same thing happens here to Moana. The heroine here is telling us, I know I've got to go forward and do something. So she says, here comes the A chord. I'm going to put it to a major chord to start with, where I long to be. Now again, with that being a major chord, that sounds so forthright. I know where I have to be. But again, not even an element of anything other than doubt is creeping in here. A minor. So there's that bar of doubt again. Yes, I know I've got to do something, but am I sure? And that is again this heroine experiencing the self-doubt. We will see again later on in Moana that actually not only do we have it there, but we have it for an extra bar, creating that what is wrong with me that you can see there. What is wrong with me? And then another bar of A minor, because she thinks that actually what on earth is going on here? It's that real element of not only self-doubt, but confusion. So there's the A minor chord. fact, that is the last time that you hear that A minor chord in there, because the rest of the song is dispensed with. I'm going to go back now to the Mirabelle song, the Waiting for a Miracle, because I want to look at this particular part of it. Not this bit, sorry, that was the A minor with the D minor section. Have a look at this bit. So here's the interesting thing on this one. We're in A major again, still at this point. We've got this miracle, A major, and then chord 4 minor. Same thing again that we were talking about before. The element of self-doubt. Now let's look at the next bit. So the relative minor to A major is F sharp minor. That's the key, that's the minor key that sounds, that's the related key to A major, which if you look here is what's going on. So if we pretend now that we've moved to this relative minor key at this point in F sharp minor, you'll see that what Lin-Manuel Miranda has done here is turn it on its head, because we've now got this minor chord followed by the major chord. So that is now a much more upbeat sound. He's got the minor chord going into a major, suggesting that the heroine is now really growing with her inner strength. He's turned it on his head. Whereas before we had the major and then the minor chord creating this element of doubt, we've now got it the other way round. F sharp minor. If you know the song, which who doesn't by now, who doesn't know every word of Encanto off by heart, you'll know that this boosts and just really drives as she goes through it. This is one of the most well-written songs in the musical, I think, despite the fact that everybody sings the one about who we don't talk about. I think this is one of the best songs in there for illustrating some of the harmonic and compositional techniques. So one more thing to have a look at here is the key changes at this bit. So if we have a look at Moana, the key change here is the bit where things lift, and it lifts in a different way in the Mirabelle one. But if you look at what's happened here, we've lost the A minor chord to a certain degree, because in actual fact, despite the fact that it says A minor here, we've got the introduction of this G sharp, which is actually now leaning us towards our new key. We're in E major for this first section before we move up a semitone to F major to give it that lift. Now that's not really an unusual thing. That happens quite a lot, where we have the lift in a new key to really hit home. So here is that bit. So still that A minor chord, but the G sharp creating doubt within the A minor chord. And then from then on in, it's this immensely powerful song before it heads to its conclusion later on. So if we just have a quick look then at what happens there with Encanto. We can see that that gets done in an entirely different way. So the end of Waiting for a Miracle does indeed change key, but now what he does is just disband entirely with that 4 minor chord. The miracle does actually occur later on in the film, but the 4 minor chord doesn't then make an appearance until the very end, where he leaves that hanging, but he gives it, it's a much bolder minor chord, because Mirabelle really is still searching at the end of her song. Whereas Moana knows, well, actually, I know now I've got to do this. She's actually on the boat at the end of her song, how far I'll go. And the last thing we see is her boat sailing off into the distance. Whereas with Mirabelle, what happens is at the end of her song, yes, she knows something has grown inside her. She knows she's got this inner strength to try and do something, but she hasn't really found out what it is yet. And therefore, that 4 minor chord is still making an appearance right up to the last minute. It happens, and then a stop at the end of that bit. So with Mirabelle's song, in actual fact, we can hear that the chord 4 minor is still there because Mirabelle is still searching. And in fact, halfway through the film, she finds what she's looking for, which is the man we don't really want to talk about because we don't talk about him. So that is, in a nutshell, is some of the compositional techniques that we can expect to see in any of Lin-Manuel Miranda's music. He knows how to use that 4 minor chord. And in fact, I believe that in these two songs, he uses it for that purpose and that device to create this element of doubt and create this element of confusion. It's not uncommon for that to be done. It's not necessarily even a genius thing for it to be done, but it is to be used in that context and to be used so successfully is quite a thing. Other places where you might be interested that he uses it, if you're a Hamilton fan, he uses it in King George's song, in the hook. There it is, 4 minor. But I don't believe that in this song it's anything other than creating a strong melodic and compositional line or a hook for the audience to really grab onto. Because there isn't really an element of doubt in King George's mind at this stage, because he is completely insane. You could argue that the 4 minor is creating this kind of level of insanity, but I think really, as we've proved from this, Lin-Manuel Miranda knows exactly how to use that chord, and he's used it again there. There are many other times throughout Hamilton that he's used it, and there are many other times in these other songs that he's used it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I will endeavour to try to get some more material up in the next few weeks, particularly seeing as the Encanto is a great piece of work to look at for leitmotifs, for motifs that are attached to characters that appear throughout. If you ever get a chance to listen to the whole album from Encanto, just have a listen to how many times you think you can hear fragments of the other songs appearing back in other people's songs, because whenever you hear characters reappearing, you can hear motifs just coming back again and again and again. Lin-Manuel Miranda is an absolute genius at creating things that go together from other people's songs. Bruno is a great example of that. There's about 100 different things going on there, and then right at the end of the song, of course, everybody is still singing their theme together. So anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed that presentation, and I will see you all very soon.